heart, open mind. I welcome you all to the Sattva channel, which is an official online platform of the Sattva project. Myself, Samiksha Mishram, and I am from the Sattva Youth. This is a program initiated by the Sattva project itself. Before we start with our session tonight, I would like to thanks our streamer sponsor and media partners, Durian Asian and Durian FM, for their constant and kind support. And also one more individual who manages all the technicalities in the background, our broadcast director, Brother Chong. Brother Chong would like to say hi to our audience, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And for those of you who are watching, please do like and share so that more people can benefit. And for those watching in YouTube, also do like, share, and subscribe. And now back to you, Samisha.
Thank you, Brother Chong. So, and now I would like to introduce to you our moderator and contributors of tonight's session. And before that, let me tell you about the topic of tonight's discussion. It's managing emotions under the series of Noble Tara. And let me introduce you the moderator, which is Sister Smitha Lahiri. Having spent over 20 years in the technology industry, Smitha decided to give it up and dedicate more time to her Dharma journey. After finding some precious teachers and attending several retreats, she decided to undertake structured study of Dharma. She recently graduated with a diploma in Buddhist philosophy, Nalanda tradition from Tibet House, Delhi. She is currently on the board of Tashi Getseling Buddhist Center in Maine. She has been a counselor for cancer patients and their caregivers, something that helped her immensely in her Dharma practice. Smita is based in Bangalore, India. I warmly welcome you.
Thank you,
Smita.
Samiksha. Thank you so much.
Yes. Our first contributor of tonight's session is Venerable Bhikkhuni Sumangala. Venerable Bhikkhuni Sumangala graduated with an MA in Industrial and Organizational Psychology, UKM, Malaysia, and a MA, and again one more MA in Buddhist philosophy from International Buddhist College, Thailand. She renounced her corporate life as a branch manager and became an anagarik since 2005 under the spiritual guidance of Venerable Bhikkhu Mahinda Mahathera, Malaysia, and Venerable Nadimail Sumedha Maniyo, Sri Lanka. Currently, Venerable Sumangala Bhikkhuni is the abbess of Arya Vihara and the spiritual advisor of Gautami Vihara Society. She is invited to deliver Dhamma talks in various Buddhist societies and conferences, conduct meditation retreats in Malaysia and abroad. She also conducts Dhamma education for family, youth, and children camps, metta and mindfulness workshops, and individual and family counseling, and etc. In 2019, she has pioneered the Arya Monastic and Laity Training Program, one of the first Theravada Bhikkhuni and Laity Development Program in Malaysia, to nurture potential Dhamma leader, noble practitioner, and Bhikkhuni Sangha in Malaysia. At present, she is also leading a building project team and invite all supporters to donate and build a new Arya Vihara at Kwasa Damansara, Selangor, the first Malaysian Theravada Bhikkhuni Nunnery and Dhamma Training Center, which will be scheduled for construction in 2023 for the well-being, happiness, and benefit of the many. Her tagline is Living Skillfully by the Dhamma. I warmly welcome you, Venerable Bhikkhuni, to the session.
Thank you, Samisha.
Welcome, Bhikkhuniji. Okay, so now I would like to. Our second contributor is Kat Leo. She has BSc honor in psychology, MSc organizational psychology, MSc occupational through health, PG diploma high intensity psychological therapies. Kat is currently working in IAPT service as a cognitive behavioral psychotherapist. She was working in mental health as an occupational therapist over 8 years. Kat was interested in Buddhism since a child, explored more when she moved to the UK for continuing her university education. She is also a volunteer with the local Scouts group. I warmly welcome you, Kat, to the session.
Thanks a lot, Shamisha.
So we have, yes, welcome, thank you, and we have such interesting contributors tonight. And now I hand over this program to this moderator.
Thank you so much, Samiksha. Welcome, Bhikkhuni, and welcome, Kat, and welcome to our wonderful audience. Let's hope what we present here tonight is able to benefit you in some way. Um, So, how did the topic managing emotions come about? I think, Sharabla and I were in discussion because this is under the Noble Tara series. We've been doing a series of talks that are, focused on women and psychology and Buddhism. So this was suggested by some of our listeners who are tuning in as well. That how about we do a session on how women, not just women, everybody can help manage their emotions better, because it's normally perceived that women are more emotional beings. Uh, so that was the genesis of the session. So having said that, you know, we're all human. We all have emotions, and emotions are generally, when they occur, it's like it's already too late to kind of understand that we are overtaken by these emotions, right? So invariably they end up presenting a lot of challenges in our relationships, in society, and a lot of harm. However, we've not really understood the mechanics of emotions, how these emotions arise. What are they? How are they arising? When can I take note of it arising, and what can I do about it? I think some of these questions will be able to help our audience better in trying to, respond differently when these emotions arise, and probably in the process, cause less damage in their own relationships and in society and in the world out there, right? So we'll explore this topic from two lenses, given that we have two diverse set of speakers. One would be through the lens of a therapist who's been in the job for a long, long time and has probably worked with a lot of clients and has seen a lot of cases and probably can bring in some of that experience for us today, and the other through a dharma practitioner. And all of Buddhism is psychology, right? And all of it is about the mind. So bhikkhuni who can help us see these emotions through the dharma angle, and somewhere among all this we find ways, we find tools, and we find skills to take back with us to help us manage our emotions better. So that would be the general outline of today's conversation. Having said that, we'll get started with getting the first question out there to Kat. What is an emotion? What do you define is as an emotion? Are feelings and emotions synonymous, right? And what are the key aspects of emotion? Um, if you could help us with that, Kat, from the psychology perspective.
Well, Smitha, that's a really good question. What is emotion? What are feelings? Because I think they are used interchangeably as well. I have the view that we're taught how to spell emotions. We know enough to use it in conversations, but I feel that early education doesn't really often teach us how to understand emotions. So, from a cognitive behavioral therapy background, we tend to help people or encourage people to see emotions in five different factors. We kind of break it down. So people might be familiar with this already, but often emotions is it's a combination, a reflection of a trigger, a situation that has happened, which leads to thoughts. So, for example, a situation might be you hear a loud bang, which then a thought arises. It might be like, oh, someone's breaking in. And then you have that feeling of being scared or anxious. And then there's a physical sensation where your heart might beat quite fast. You have sweaty armpits. And then there's a behavioral version. So thank you so much, Brother Chong, for sharing that picture with us. So that's kind of in summary in how we tend to see emotions or feelings. But to better illustrate the answer to this question, I want to carry out a short experiment here. Could I ask Aya Sumangala and Smitha as well to answer this question? Obviously, I'm hoping this question can relate to the listeners as well. So what I'd like you both to do for me is to take a step back, and I want you to tell me what the first one or two words that may spring to mind when I ask you to imagine yourself feeling angry. No need to think too much, just what are the early thoughts you might have when you imagine yourself feeling angry? So I might not be able to hear, I mean, if listeners are out there, they can type it into the chat, but I'll be interested to hear what Sumangala and Smitha might have in mind.
Yeah, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is uncontrolled speech.
Uncontrolled
Lose
speech.
control. Yeah, you lose control over what you say.
Great reflection. I'm going to come back to that uncontrolled speech, which is quite a common thought as well. And Aya?
When a person is unmindful.
Unmindful. Wow. So thank you so much both for sharing your thoughts with us. It'll be interesting to hear what other people think as well. So the reason why I ask this question is because often, from what research have shown so far, is that when we think of emotions, we often have a belief on how we see emotions, how we define it. So yes, we might read in the textbook what emotions mean, but in reality, what is emotion is how we relate to it, which might be quite different for everybody. And so people say often we tend to judge ourselves before we ask why. But as you can see, quite experienced practitioners here, when they see emotion, they already think exactly, they kind of nail the nature of the emotion, where you say it involves uncontrolled speech and mindfulness, which may or may not be the common response. They say that the most common response we have is, I shouldn't feel this way. That's bad. Or that's weakness. Yeah. Because these are very commonly, you might say, ingrained in our culture and our upbringing. And the reason why I bring this up is because when you ask the question, what are emotions? From my personal point of view, emotions are like information. Yeah, so we often label them good or bad, but actually, in my view, in terms of CBT as well, cognitive behavioral therapy, we don't deny that emotions are good or bad. Yeah, because they have good and bad impact on us. But what we want to do is recognize, how are we first seeing emotions? Are we immediately judging our emotions, and are we creating a belief that's actually determining or dictating what we do next? So that's my view, but I'll be interested to hear what Aya feels as well.
Yeah, you would like to, bring to us how the early Buddhist texts define emotions, and are these different from other mental states? And following up on what Kat said, that is there a virtuous and a non-virtuous, or wholesome on an unwholesome aspect of emotion as well?
In the Buddhist context, I think first it's important for us to understand the Buddha has actually defined it quite clearly. Yeah? There are two aspects of our life, that is the body aspect and also the mind aspect. Yeah? The body aspect relates to our eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body. The mind aspect is having four components. Yeah, and the first component is feeling. Second is perception, that is mental formation, and fourth is consciousness. So when we talk about this word emotion, we can see that I think for the this word is famously used until today. It's quite a late things, I think probably 19th century. Yeah, and so early days we talk about feeling. uh, and feeling, there are aspects of feeling that Buddha mentioned is either pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Yeah? And pleasant feeling, of course, when you feel joyful, that's pleasant. Yeah, being loved, that is pleasant. Feeling unpleasant when you experience pain, whether it's mental pain in terms of feeling angry or sad. So these are unpleasant feeling. Yeah, and neutral can be something like you. We think the word neutral is neutral. Yeah, don't feel pleasant, neither unpleasant. Yeah, but in the Buddhist perspective, even this may not be a state of very mindful state. it can be also an ignorant state. Yeah. So in the context of now, when we say emotion, that we mean that the feeling is stir up. Yeah, it's not in the balanced state. Either you feel, but most connotation to emotion is that something that brings your mind agitated, or brings your mind feel unpleasant. So I think from the Buddhist perspective, we can actually look at it from this lens. Yeah, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Venerable, on that, I just wanted to ask, like, what is the point where we realize that this feeling is arising? Like, how do you determine that this is arising within me?
Feeling.
Yeah.
Feeling, actually, how feeling arise? Feeling arise when there's a contact. Yeah. For example, when we see something, yeah, through the eyes. Yeah. So suppose you look at a flower. Yeah. So there's a sense base, which is your eyes, and the flower
Mm-hmm.
is the sense object. And when there's a attention there, then we call it the the contact. Yeah, the contact happen. So we say the eye consciousness arrives, and that's where contact is. And when there's contact, then there will be a feeling. So it happened very fast. So example, just now we said, okay, you look at a flower, and then immediately you feel whether you like it or you don't like it. And you can even go to the extent of proliferating it already. For example, if you see the flower pink and you like pink, then the tendency to think about pinkish thing will actually subsequently very quickly come in. Yeah. But suppose you don't like the flower, although it's a flower, but you don't like flower. Yeah. You dislike. So the moment you look, I said, at the flower, then the arising feeling will be you don't like. When you don't like, aversion arises. Then you may also proliferate in the sense that why the person put the flower there, or that kind of judgment already come in. So
Mm-hmm.
contact is conditioning feeling. So feeling can be whether you like it. When you like it, you crave for it more. When you don't like it, then you will have aversion.
Right.
So the how does it come about is by the sense base and the sense object when they are in contact. Yeah, and you pay attention to it, then feeling will arise. So it can happen through your eyes, to your ears, to your nose, to your tongue, and to your body, or even your mind contact with the mind object. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think you summarized that nicely on the I think you were referring to the five omnipresent mental factors of contact, attention. Then you try to do the judgment of whether I like this, I don't like this, I'm neutral towards it, and then the feeling arises. So, Kat, coming to you, how do you what does psychology or Western psychology say about recognizing our emotions? Right here, I think Aya said this is how. I mean, if you put that process in your head, right? These are the steps that happen when the emotions are arising. I think you can play it out in slow motion in your head, right? That I am seeing something, and then the feeling, then I'm processing it, discriminating whether I like it, I don't like it. Of course, it happens very fast, but then once you know that these are the steps that happen, then you can be more mindful about it. So from Western psychology perspective, could you highlight what the key aspects of recognizing our emotions are?
So, what Aya has done there for us has helped us break down what emotion is. In terms of the question, how we recognize, I think the important thing is to first recognize that actually it's hard to recognize it in the moment of time. Like one of the audience, Niraj, who's kindly shared that he understands, or that you're angry after a later stage, but in the moment, how do you comprehend, how do you know that the anger arises? And I think that's a really good point, because often we don't know until it's happened. But that's a really good reason for that, because from a scientific point of view, and I can't speak for all kind of science as well, but from my understanding, is that when the emotion arises, you're kind of switching on your survival brain. The amygdala is a different part of your brain. So a part of your brain, the survival brain, is responsible to give immediate reaction to help you live longer. So, for example, if you're anxious, let's say there's a car, imagine there's a car driving towards you really fast. How are you going to feel? Probably really panicked. When you're panicked, what are you going to do? You're going to run out the way, and then you're going to live. So the emotion, the panic, the purpose initially is to drive you to do something to live longer. I'm not saying this is the best way to solve all our problems, but often we can be very driven by our sort of survival brain. And so what happens is when our survival brain is switched on, our thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex in charge of analyzing, decision-making, concentration, apparently that's kind of switched off. And there's a reason why. So for example, let's say the car was driving really fast towards you. If your thinking brain was switched on to full blast, you're going to be analyzing, will the car hit me? What time will the car hit me? Which direction will it hit me? Are there any, will I trip over if I run different directions? Have I eaten enough? By the time you analyze everything, what do you think your chances are to survive if a car was driving towards you? Yeah. And that's why they're suggesting in our DNA, it's kind of like an automatic response where we turn on our survival brain, the emotional part, and we switch off the thinking brain because we don't want to make that risk. We're going to think, oh, we'd rather be safe than sorry, which is why often when people are anxious and nervous, they can't think straight. They can't really articulate themselves. They can't remember some of the things because when they're anxious and nervous, when they're very highly emotional, their thinking brain is slightly switched off. It's kind of on holiday a bit. And I think this is why I find Buddhism very helpful because it's helping us recognize this and learn some techniques to help us balance that thinking and emotion brain. I'm sorry,
So
I doesn't.
Aya, would you like to shed some light in the example that she gave us, that in that panic, the emotion of panic surfaced when you see a car coming towards you, right? So in that case, there is a clear trigger, right? So is this just equivalent to the contact in Buddhism?
I would say that what Kat has mentioned just now, of course, from the reaction, yeah, the biological side of survival, either you fight or you flight. And so in this case, even it can be trained. Yeah, if you are trained to be more mindful of things or to respond to things in a more wholesome way, in a way that if you have that response that is not based on the emotion, means becoming panic, and sometimes because due to the panicky situation, the mind doesn't work. It just shut down and you don't know what to do and it gets shocked there. And that's where the danger comes. Yeah. So, but if you are able, then you know the way how to bring your mind back quickly. So then the response will be very different. Yeah. And you can see, instead of like thinking the car is hitting you already, you may see in a still that moment, yeah, of response. Yeah. For example, if you are a person who's panicked and a person who's calm, yeah, the same situation coming, but a calm person will respond very quickly, in a way saving their life. But a person who's panicked can actually be very dangerous because they don't know what to do at that moment. Yeah. And so all this can be trained, yeah, that we are able to stay calm in the times of emergency. Yeah. So but it needs training, of course, and the kind of practice. And so what I'm trying to say here is that there are methods and ways. Yeah. For example, that when they are in a panic situation, for example, like one time my devotees, and she's going for a surgery. Yeah. And during that time, she said she was very panicked. Yeah. And before she went for the surgery, I also shared with her, I said, whatever that comes, if you're panic, I say, just come back to your breath. Okay? Just come back to your
Right.
breath. Then you will bring your mind back. Just let go of everything. Just only do breathing in and breathing out. Tell your mind, relax. Breathing and breathe out. So when she was panicked, then she told me, yeah, suddenly she remembered what I say to her. And immediately she applied it. She just do the breathing in and breathing out and relax. And apparently for some just very short period, 5 minutes like that, she managed to bring her mind to calmness. And then she said, oh, the surgery went on very smoothly. So she managed to calm herself down. And I think this is very important because in a panic situation, the body become very stiff, and even we know that in science we said that actually the immune system shut down. Yeah, when you're in fear. Yeah, so I think these are very helpful. It's very simple step, and it can be done anytime. You don't have to have any equipment or anything. It's just your own breath, and I find it is very helpful. Yeah, so uh, everyone can do it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aya. I think, that's a tool that our own breath is a tool, is the biggest tool we have in our kitty
Mhm.
to remain calm. And yet we forget it and take it for granted most of the time. We don't even pay attention to it. So thank you for that gentle reminder to all of us. So I'll come to Kat, and I know self-regulation plays a key role in managing our emotions, right? How we can regulate and we can understand our emotions. Um, and there is a lot of talk about emotional intelligence. How intelligent are you? Are you so self-aware? Are you aware of other people's emotions? How do you suggest we go about becoming more emotionally aware and intelligent?
Yeah, no, that's a good question as well. And it kind of reminds me what Sumangala actually said earlier on when in conversation about recognizing things. Actually, it doesn't have to be complicated. And it relates to one of our listeners' question as well. How do we know? For us, we say, get a pen and paper. Yeah, sometimes when we try and think it in our mind, it's kind of like trying to untangle wires in a bag. It's a little hard, try and bring those wires out. It's a little easier to sort. And it's the same here. When it's a little hard, speak to somebody or, write it down. And there's a really good table that we often use. We split it into 5 columns. What's the situation? What are the thoughts that arises? How am I feeling? Not just emotions like sad, angry, annoyed, but how's my body feeling from head to toe? And what's my behavior? What am I doing? Am I chanting? Am I avoiding? And when you break it down, it helps you your brain will start to recognize what you might want to do more skillfully. I mean, what I had mentioned in terms of the breathing techniques are one of the most advised techniques in therapy that we use, but we don't call it particularly mindfulness. I mean, it depends on the different type of therapy, but we have this thing called the grounding techniques. I'm not sure if some people are aware. So grounding techniques basically relate to using our 5 senses to ground ourselves to the present. So in my terms, it feels like it's basically mindfulness, but with a different label. And so we say, oh, let's do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. Name 5 things you can see right now, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Why is that? Because those 5 senses, you can't experience the past smell. You might remember what the past smell is, and you can't really predict what the future smell is in any way. So when you are paying attention to your senses, to those 5 senses, your attention is actually in the present, which I feel is very similar to relating to being mindful with your breathing, because you're training your brain to switch attention from what's here in the moment to help you respond skillfully rather than running away with your thoughts and stories that may or may never happen. Don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, if you could go through those steps again in the grounding technique, the 5 steps for grounding.
Yeah, of course. And this is really good. The thing I like about grounding techniques is you can use it anytime, anywhere, and nobody even needs to know that you're doing it. I would recommend all listeners to try this with a bar of chocolate. or your favorite food. And this is very similar to, I think, some of the practice that's been mentioned before by different scientists. But basically, you notice, I don't know, 5 things that you can see on the chocolate bar. You know, the texture, and then the shape, and then as you're eating it, what can you hear? Yeah, so 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can touch. So what's the texture like on your fingers when you're holding the bar of chocolate? What's your temperature like? 2 things that you can smell, have the smell of your chocolate. If you had to remember at 1 o'clock how this chocolate smells, how would you describe it? And then the last one is how it tastes in your mouth. So this is very flexible. Some people like to go on walks and they might say, I'm going to look out for 4 things that are color green.
Right.
And this is just to help them recognize that sometimes if their mind is running away with them and they don't know what to do, they want to catch their breath. This is an alternative way. Some people do prefer, focusing their attention on their breath. And some people might find that this is useful as well, especially for those who might be experiencing more, different kind of physical symptoms that might be harder in that moment of time. But I think, as I had mentioned, in terms of the techniques, it's about practice. I'm not sure if you mentioned that earlier on, but it's one of those things where we know it works, but it's just like going to the gym. The more you use it, the stronger it gets, the easier it is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, Aya, Sumangala, do you want to share some light on what's going on in this particular technique that Kat talked about, the grounding technique? So she said when you see these emotions arising of either panic or, anger or anxiety, you do this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 you can taste. So looks like they're all focusing, bringing your focus or bringing your attention back to the senses, right? So would you want to shed some light on what you think is going on when we do that, when we bring our attention to these senses?
Yeah, I think in the Buddhist context, when we talk about mindfulness, there are objects of or method or way that how we can ground our mindfulness. So one of the basic grounding is, of course, through mindfulness of the body. So the mindfulness of the body even have 6 very important way to cultivate that helps one to overcome different challenges of the mind. Yeah? And the first very method is, of course, anapanasati. Yeah, that is mindfulness of the in and out breath.
Right.
And the second is about the 4 postures. Yeah, so that whatever posture our body is disposed, then we bring our awareness to that. Yeah. And the third is, we call it the comprehension of all activities of the body. Yeah. And the fourth, of course, is the elements in the body. And the fifth is, they call it the 32 parts of the body. And the last one, of course, is contemplation on the decomposing of the body. So, of course, basically for lay people, what we can use very useful is, of course, mindfulness of the in and out breath, and the 4 posture, and the comprehension of every activity of the body. So just now what Kat has mentioned about these 5 senses, in this comprehension of the activity of the body, then of course, when we have, let's say, a retreat to give them the perspective how they can train themselves from one action to another action, so that they are able to stay with their whatever that they do. That helps them when they anchor into the body, the activity of the body. Then the tendency for them not to think too much. For example, when they're doing sitting meditation, so if a person is experience more emotional kind of experience during their meditation, Then normally we ask them to do a little bit more on walking meditation. So because during walking meditation, they have some activity of the body which is gross, which they can feel it, and they just bring their mind just to walk. Yeah, and if in case there are thoughts, that uncontrollable thoughts that comes, then they can pause and then do some breathing. Yeah, and then as you breathe, naturally it cuts off a thought. So when that comes, like probably 10, 20 times, we tell them, then the mind become back into the present, then they continue to walk. Yeah, so with that we advise them to walk a little bit longer so that the awareness of the body become more clearer, and then only they are able to do their sitting meditation again, back to their breath. Yeah? So this helps to counter their balancing. So at the beginning of the training, normally they don't sit so long. Yeah, they to help themselves, and this not only on walking meditation, during eating. Yeah, eating, so they can also eat mindfully, and they can mindfully scoop the food and chew. And in this process, actually, a lot of people start to realize how they act, yeah, in certain activity that they do daily. So, for example, like eating. So normally we also share with them to mindfully eat. Yeah, what do we mean mindfully eat? For example, just now Kat mentioned the five senses. So when they collect food, we also tell them when they collect food, observe, yeah, the food that you collect, the amount that you collect, yeah, and then as they eat, they chew, yeah, they chew and until the, let's say, the food become paste. Most people don't eat that way. Yeah, they just swallow food, and that
Yeah.
causes a lot of
Yeah, I
problem
do.
actually. Yeah, stomach problem, gastric problem. Yeah, so so we give them that, step by step, how they can do it, and when they follow it, then they start to realize a lot of time they don't chew properly, and even like what they eat, what is the texture, they do not know. Yeah, but when they do that, then they start to they realize that, oh, I eat too fast. Yeah, or they start to taste. Last time they cannot taste anything, but now they start to taste. So this helps them to ground themselves. Yeah, that what they are doing actually is like rat race kind of things, and that actually affect their lifestyle. And when the
Yeah.
lifestyle is not in line with what is proper, then of course a lot of sickness will come. Yeah, and sometimes they do not know why they feel what they call not pleasant, or feel bodily discomfort. It all comes from not mindful, yeah, about how the body actually respond to their action. And these uh, five senses helps them to ground themselves, yeah, uh, to know that what they have been doing should be something that is balanced, so that their body become healthy, comfortable, and their mind experience too, their feeling also become comfortable, and they can enjoy life, in that way, when they understand how the body respond. But if the mind is too active, then we normally bring them to the body. So because body, they can ground themselves, they are more clear, they are more aware. Mind is fluid. Mind is very fluid. They run wherever it is. The moment they catch object, that's where they already proliferate. Yeah, but
Yeah.
to ground, bring back to your body. Yeah, the breath is also, we call it a body formation. And the other five senses, they can actually use it to ground yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, so what you actually highlighted was that these grounding techniques somewhere has a base in something like a mindfulness of the body, right? It is kind of parallel to that because the body is the easiest to ground ourselves with, to bring our attention to. The five senses are kind of the easiest to probably latch on to, as opposed to having to control the mind itself, or that's the gateways to easier to have it easier, right? And of course, Aya, you talked about bringing anapanasati, bringing the attention back to the breath. And that is definitely the first and the easiest one. I mean, not may not be the easiest, but the tool that we always have at our disposal. But nevertheless, we do have another technique that Kat has shared, and which is very aligned to what mindfulness of body meditation is. So I think we see the convergence here. And yeah, I think this is an easy technique for our audience out there to try and implement as well. So here we have one viewer who sent me a question saying, how do we apply this kind of a technique? We can apply it on ourselves. Yeah, it's right here. But how do we understand, react to others' emotions, especially when somebody gets angry very often? Right. So we apply the tools on managing our own emotions. That's good. But then, um, how are we going to, respond, understand, respond, and react to other people's emotions? Do we continue to apply these techniques? Would apply then too?
So, shall I start or?
Yes.
Yeah, you could go ahead. Yeah, Kat.
Okay, great. So, so in terms of the grounding techniques and being mindful, it is helpful, and as we know, it can be hard at the same time. So when we ask the questions, how do we understand emotions? I think it kind of goes back to the questions, how can we recognize it? Well, I think first of all, emotions can be seen as our body's way in communicating with us. So this is one view. I'm just inviting you all to consider this view where emotions is our body speaking to us, telling us something, that there's an important need that to be met. And until that need is met, that emotion is going to stay there in different forms. So for example, if somebody is angry, so Niraj had mentioned, anger as well. Anger actually is our body telling us that either we've faced something that is unfair, unjust, or simply we're just exhausted. We haven't had quality sleep. We've been working 24/7 or just nonstop taking care of our family, friends, our finance, our children. You haven't really had time to recharge your own battery. Yeah. So what happens is when the body recognizes that you need a break and you need a rest, but you're so tired and you haven't done that yourself, it's going to do it for you. It's going to get you to become really agitated very easily. You're going to speak and act in a way that's going to cause people to want a distance from you. I mean, let me ask both of you, when somebody's angry, do you automatically be like, oh, I'm going to run towards them? Or do you think, oh, actually, I want to give them space? What do you say? Give them space? Yeah. And that's what it is. The body wants to create distance between you and other things because when there's distance, you don't need to waste energy to justify yourself, explain yourself, interact, because all that drains your energy. So with that distance, it's helping you to conserve your energy and it's trying to force you to take a break. Yeah, you can't imagine somebody who's well rested, great quality sleep, full of energy, to be easily angry. Yeah, I don't know if anybody had that experience, but that's just something to think about. So often we say, right, if you're angry, often it's telling you that maybe it's something unfair, you need a break. It doesn't mean you're a good or bad person. It's what we do with that anger that makes it more or less helpful. If you're sad, basically means that you've lost something important to you. Could be a person, could be a pen, your time, your confidence. If you're anxious, it means you're experiencing something that's threatening your sense of well-being and safety. Health changes are big things, like when you're sick, COVID, all of those things. It's very normal to create sense of anxiety, nervousness, and sadness, because when you're nervous, you often tend to stop doing the things that you enjoy as well. So you have that, and what theory says is when you're stop doing things that you enjoy or stop doing things that are important to you, it's kind of like you're running out of battery, and it's very easy to become succumb to these different emotions, because it's emotions like saying to you, hold on a moment, there's something that needs changing. So I don't know if that answers the questions in terms of understanding and reacting to other people's emotions, maybe starting with listening, which is why I think it's really helpful what Aya mentioned there is actually when you come back to your breath, or you're not just running away with your thoughts, you're trying to perhaps in some ways listen to your body or try to understand what's important and kind of make better decisions on what to do in response. Oh, I think you're on mute, Smitha.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think understanding that if that other person's anger is triggering me or not is also the other. My anger could rise as well. So I think understanding our own triggers is one of the important steps where I see that, okay, that I also do not, the other person's anger doesn't trigger the same in me, right? So to be mindful of that these are triggers for me. So how, so would that come under something like, you're journaling and finding out your triggers? Do you recommend that we actively understand what our triggers are?
Yeah, that's a really great point, Smith. I would say writing things down. Some people like doing it on their phone. Some people like piece of paper and pen. It depends on everybody's learning styles. But as you said, understanding your triggers just by kind of, yeah, categorizing, well, from the CBT point of view, which stands for cognitive behavioral therapy, we view that actually writing it down in terms of the columns of situation, thoughts, feelings, behavior is a start to invite our brain to look at whether our thoughts are facts or actually they're just thoughts, but we're believing in them as if they're real or permanent, when actually they're just thoughts which is shaped by our past experiences, habits, our current mood, that sort of thing. So yeah, breaking it down.
Yeah. So with that, I'll just come to Aya Sumangala. You talked about wholesome, unwholesome emotions. Um, where is the morality aspect? I mean, our current morals, how does it drive the emotions that surface? For example, if our current disposition is one of unwholesome in nature, like I'm doing all the wrong things, right? I'm cheating people, I'm telling lies, would that mean that, in general, more unwholesome thoughts or unwholesome emotions will arise in me? Do I have the potential for more unwholesome uh, emotions to arise?
I think on this aspect, Smita, in the context of just now, maybe I just also share just now the question on the emotion that arise, suppose anger from somebody else, right? And so how do we respond? So I look at it as two aspects. One is basically our lifestyle can cause the mood or the tendency or the degree of our anger. Yeah? And another part is basically from the mind, yeah, how we perceive the things. For example, let's say a person who always sleeps very late, yeah, and even research has shown the way that we respond is very different. A person who have good sleep means they sleep early, wake up early, yeah? But nowadays people sleep on the same day. They sleep very late, yeah, 3, 4 o'clock, and they wake up 11, 12 o'clock. Although they have 8 hours sleep, but that is not a kind of good sleep, yeah. So good sleep probably means sleep early about 10, 10:30, and then wake up at about 5:30, 6 o'clock, yeah. And they really get the body actually rejuvenate in its own order. So that helps to prevent moody or the kind of response, yeah, that you respond to the tendency of angry or get disappointed or the way you respond is very different, yeah. So for example, I say if you have good sleep, when there's something trigger, you can actually in the 0.25 second you already can be able to respond. But if you're having a lack of sleep, yeah, it took 6 seconds to respond. So something that you can actually properly respond can make you slow, yeah, in comprehending, and therefore it can trigger, yeah, the way you perceive the things in a very different way, and you become a little bit moody because the mind couldn't digest, yeah, the information that comes in. So this is more on the aspect of just very simple thing, your lifestyle, yeah, which you can prevent, yeah. And you want to have a better mood, sleep early, wake up early, yeah, and then do some exercise, I think that will be very helpful. Yeah, so you don't even have to do much, but just do this properly. Second part is the way you perceive thing and the way you relate that person to yourself, or relate the incident or event to yourself. For example, let's say a person, somebody say stupid, and if you take it that the person say that word that's directing to you, so naturally you get very angry. Yeah, why that person, scolded you stupid? Maybe that is not what they meant. They just, some people, they just very quickly, they use all these unwholesome words. Yeah, now I'm coming to the unwholesome. Yeah, unwholesome word. What it means is that those words, or when it's said, it brings your mind down, and it triggers your emotion. So, but suppose that person say like that, and the way you perceive it, that that person is scolding you, and your ego is tempered. Yeah, and you start to think that why did the person scolded you stupid, and that person only scolded you once, but it will trigger in your mind why that person scold you stupid, and why he do not know that his word is hurting, and then blah 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 blah. You may think that his mother never teach him, or and this person, and you will create a lot of whole story about the stupidity. Yeah? But that person only may say one word, but how much time it rhymes into your mind, it proliferates. And now then you see, sometimes when you look at it, you will laugh. Yeah, now who is more stupid? He only scored one time. You can actually proliferate in my mind for 100 times, 1,000 times, not only this year, next year, 10 years, still playing in your mind, right? So this is where that we have to be very mindful. Yeah, why the anger comes, yeah, is because how we perceive that word or that incident towards yourself. And I think the best thing is, of course, to not take in these unwholesome words to our mind, and also we learn not to speak the unwholesome word. Yeah, because when we indicate this unwholesome word in our own mind, it actually affect, yeah, our balance. It actually trigger that emotion. It's still uneasiness, sometimes feeling dejected, you feel down, and these are what we say that unwholesome deeds, or unwholesome uh, speech, or unwholesome state of mind. It brings our mind down. It makes us feel uh, unpleasant. Yeah, but what about wholesome word? For example, we say very simple word that every day we use. How much time, if we reflect in a day, we say thank you? It's very wholesome word. But if we reflect, how much time that we think in a day that we say this word to somebody else? Yeah. So if we can say that, it's very nice. People who listen to it, they feel appreciated. But just a very simple word, thank you. you know or you greet somebody, good morning. Every morning you meet somebody, you greet them with a smile, and it's very wholesome, because when the person look at you, listen to you, their day start to be brightened. So these are the things that we have to recognize. Yeah, there are things, or words, or mental state, or deeds that is wholesome. It uplift your mind. And they are also a state of mind, or speech, or this bodily action that actually is unwholesome. Because why is unwholesome? Because it brings the mind down, and it feel uneasy, or it feel unhappy. So we need to know this, so that when the moment the mind fall into this state, then of course it's our choice to choose to bring it back to the wholesome side. So then we can protect ourselves from being what do you call dragged in time and in space, so that we suffer from it. For example, even research show that when you have anger, the moment you have anger, of course, the state of the mind will fall. Yeah. And it will fall beyond the normal curve. Yeah. But it takes so many hours to come up. Yeah. But if you are able to quickly identify it, then you can switch to the wholesome state. Yeah. Instead of looking at a person's something that is unwholesome about them, you can look at the wholesome side of that person. Yeah. So we always share with them, when you put, let's say, a mahjong paper, a white mahjong paper, you just take up and you ask people, what do you see? People will tell you, white paper, right? But you just step on that mahjong paper and you put up again, you ask them, what do you see? They say, I see the black step. You try to
Right.
ask another time, what do you see? Black step. Third time you ask, what do you see? Black step. So what happened? So most of the time, we look at that black step. And we have forgotten, that black step may be 10% of the whole white paper.
Paper.
We have
Yeah.
forgotten about the white paper. You see? So this is where when you give them that sharing, they start to realize, I keep pointing at the black step, but I've forgotten, the 90% of that white, yeah, which I should focus on. Yeah. And this black step, yes, it's happened in our life, mistakes sometimes is done, but we should not focus on that black step. Because if we keep focusing on that black step, of course, we have black experience, no? Yeah, but if we focus on the white, then we can switch our mind to the white. Then we feel actually uplifted again. And we forgive, that black. And that's how we can erase it. Yeah. So what I would like to say is that always focus our mind to the wholesome state, to the white. Yeah. That 90% of the white. Yeah. If you have ever experienced that little black step, remember, we are human. We are making effort to purify ourselves, and so we need to forgive ourselves sometimes. And it was the past, and we can move on. Yeah, to do all the good that we can and do our best. I think then we will be able to shift our mind to the good state again. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aya. Thank you so much for that elaborate, response, and reminding us to focus on the white paper. Yeah, that's a very important thing. I think we lose sight of that all the time, right? We're so engrossed in focusing on the black step. So, thank you for that reminder. Kat, do you have anything else you wanted to add on?
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting how I.S. Sumangala had used the example of how we can focus on the black things, no matter how big or small. Our brain has a tendency to have that focus. So how do we come to switch our focus and look at the bigger picture and understand why there might be black spots, or how we can transform it into something that's more helpful for us? And this relates to what Aya had mentioned earlier, is about how we perceive things, how we relate to something. If there was a nice looking guy in front of me who I think, oh, he looks friendly, and he smiled at me, I'll be like, oh, that's really nice of him. But if I think, oh, I don't really like this guy, I don't know this guy, and he's smiling at me, I might perceive it different and think, oh, what a pervert, he's smiling at me. So we can have the same situation, have different interpretations. And one of the ways to help our brain, because I know it's nice to quickly identify things, but actually the quickest way to change sometimes is by going slow. And one of the ways to go slow is by breaking things down, as we mentioned. Now, as you can see here, researchers have gathered a type of thinking style that we might all be vulnerable to. And I know that I've fallen into all of these categories before. Now, the problem is not whether we have these thinking styles or not. The issue is whether we're aware that we have that thinking style in that moment of time. And are we making decisions based on those unhelpful thinking styles, or the bigger picture, as Aya mentioned, you're considering the white paper as well as the black, other side of things. So, for example, there's a tendency where we might react and think that, there's an all or nothing style, which kind of explains where, for example, you bake a cookie and it's burnt, and you might think, oh my God, that means I can never bake at all. I'm a terrible baker. So that's an all or nothing. Either you're perfect or you're not. Yeah. There's the overgeneralizing kind of style of thinking, oh my God, if I failed on this exam, I'm just going to fail on the other ones now. Yeah, there's a tendency for these things, disqualifying the positive. Somebody, gives you compliment, or you scored really high in your exam. Oh, it's just because the exam was easy. Oh, it's just because I'm lucky. Yeah, so there's quite a lot, and these are summarized in the psychology tools, which you can find online. But if you just Google unhelpful thinking styles, then you'll be able to have a look at these different things. And the great thing about this is it's not to judge you. It's not to say you're a good or bad person. They're here to let you recognize whether your brain is stuck on these thinking styles and what are the short-term and long-term consequences of doing that. If I keep thinking like this, if I keep using emotions to reason what I do, I'm feeling nervous, must mean it's a really bad thing. If I keep using this kind of thinking style, is it going to help you meet your goal? Is it going to help you understand why you're angry or why there's conflict in your lives? This is so we call these kind of what we say Socratic questions. Socratic, like based on Socrates, the philosopher who asked a lot of questions in life. Ask ourselves these good questions, not to judge, but to understand more. What would you say if your friend was in the same same position as you? Yeah, would you still say, oh yeah, you passed your test because the exam was too easy? Yeah. So these are just some techniques that we might consider using when we want to identify whether we're sort of feeding into our emotions that are helpful or less helpful.
Definitely a very good worksheet, and can really help us. Would you think this serves as a good retrospective tool, like after you've been through a certain episode of emotion, you go through, okay, why did I feel that way? Would this worksheet would help analyze that?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, to help us analyze. And in terms of your question, sorry, could you clarify it again? I'm sorry, Smith. I
So
think I
it's
missed.
retrospective. I mean, after the fact, after the
Yes.
fact, you can kind of, go back and reflect on what went wrong, or because any one of us could fall into any of these thinking styles, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's good thing about reflection is, yes, you might not be able to change the past, but at least you can shape your future. And often we are kind of behaving in a habitual manner for good reasons. So, for example, once upon a time it worked for you for a certain case, and that's why we habitually repeat these thinking styles. It's just about giving yourself choice. If we don't ask ourselves what's happening or reflect or think in, retrospectively, as you mentioned, are we giving ourselves fair choice to respond skillfully? So yeah, it's kind of an exercise. It doesn't have to be a difficult one. It can be hard, actually, to be honest, to figure out what thinking styles we have at the time. I know it's hard for me, but it's one of those things. Practice makes progress.
True. So, it really looks like this is something we need to, every one of us. You don't wait for an issue to arise. Don't wait for your emotions to grow to such an extent that, you're having catastrophic failures in relationships and all. But these are things that we should probably do proactively to be able to have a good life, right? So, just tools that all of us should employ in everyday life to just understand how we are responding, what are our emotions, how are we, and some amount of introspection about these things, right? So which I think is largely absent today. Pretty much you see people living their lives in autopilot mode, right? Not paying attention until there is a huge catastrophic event, like until it leads to something very big. Till the time we are kind of in the flow, we're not paying too much attention, or it's not causing too much disruption in our lives. A small fight here and there, and but it's not largely so would you recommend that these are things that we should do, anybody or everybody should be doing, regardless of whether they are having major problems in relationships, or what do you
So
say, Aya? Yeah, both Kat and Aya, both of you, I would like you to answer that.
Smita, when you say that, the first thing that comes into my mind is that lifestyle. Yeah. We are all in the rat race society,
Yeah.
and we have forgotten. We thought, we should have more time, But I think every human on earth is given the same time. 1 day, 24 hours, right? So within 1 day, 24 hours, what is important in life? What is the purpose of life? I think we need to also reflect, yeah? So if 24 hours, and if we think we want to be happy and live healthily, it's very simple. Just take that 24 hours. So you want to be very healthy, sleep at least 7 to 8 hours, right? So how much hours is left? 24 minus 7, right? So probably you get about 17.
Yeah.
After 17 hours, suppose you're a working person, 8 hours, right? So
More
you
than
have
8.
9. Okay. Then one day you eat 3 meals, minus again 3. How much hours is left? 6. Morning you wake up, you need to go to washroom, you need to bath, you need to take care of your body. Yeah, it takes you another 1 hour. So you only left 2 hours, right? So what are you going to do with these 2 hours? So suppose you have family. So what left? So you see, but we want to juggle 1 day and compact everything into that 1 day. Yeah. But if you plan for 7 days, okay, what are the things that you can actually do it more efficiently, but maintaining a good lifestyle? Because lifestyle is so important. When you don't have enough or don't know how to do something in the proper way, then it will definitely affect your body. And when your body is affected, definitely it will affect your mind. Yeah. So you get to stress because why? You want to fit maybe 28 hours thing into 24 hours. So you shortchange a lot of things, yeah, thinking
Yeah.
that you have to do and do and do and do, And what happened to the body? The body said, yeah, I can cope with you for a while, but in long term, I'm not. Yeah. So each of us need to know how the body works. And when you stress the body, of course, the body will respond first with a good hormone to balance your stress. Yeah. The more you do it, then until one level, well, they were just released without control and they don't know what is happening already. Then the body becomes numb. And when the body becomes numb, you don't really feel, yeah, until the person really gets sick. Yeah. So this is where I think the cycle is there. So I foresee that in our time, yeah, a lot of the challenges come from the lifestyle. Yeah? Everybody knows we should do this, we should do that. Even doctors, yeah. But even doctors also don't exercise. All right.
You've got a really
So
good point there.
yeah, we all know we should this and we should that. I mean, in the internet, there's so many information, good information about how we can maintain a good life or a happy life, a healthy life. But why is it that more and more people get stressed, depressed, and sick, I would say, because in the past, at one time, I went to hospital for my checkup, heart cardiology. I was surprised to read the newspaper, and it was reported that more and more younger people have heart attack. Yeah. In the past, when I say heart attack, the first thing that come into mind, at least 60 above, no? But now, 40, 50 already heart attack. Yeah. And then I have a devotee also last time he shared with me. He's in the strategies kind of work. And he shared with me, in his work, he has seen 3 person in a meeting collapse and die. 40 over years old, 50 over years old. Yeah. What happened? Yeah. So this body has its own limit, and we have to be kind to our body. If we are not relating to our body well, that's where we'll get sick, bodily and mentally too. So I will always advise, come back, come back, know your body, know what you can do, have a purpose in life. Yeah. Material thing is not all the things in life. Yeah. Because we all know when we come to this world, we are alone. When we go, we are alone. No matter how we love, no matter how much we have, it doesn't follow us. But what does it follow? is what you experience in this life with your mental state, your verbal state, yeah, and your bodily action. Yeah. So mental action, verbal action, and bodily action. So these are the things that will bring you happiness or unhappiness. Yeah. The rest is just only a support, yeah, for our physical body, so that we can be able to cultivate and help ourselves. Because all of us wish only, I think, two things: happiness. Yeah. Nobody wish for unhappiness. And the second one that we always wish is to be free, to be free. So how do we obtain this? We have to know the proper way to get there. So physical is one thing that we need to take care so that we can support our mental strength. Yeah. And this will help us to reach what we really wish for. So I think my advice is that, remember, we all have 24 hours. It's fair for everybody, but how do you manage these 24 hours? It depends on your purpose of life. Yeah. So when you have real purpose in life, you'll find that it's so interesting, just nice 24 hours, no more, no less. And then you can really plan, yeah, from one day to 1 week, 1 month, yeah, what you really wish. Let's say for family members, yeah, I always tell them, yeah, a family man or family woman, you may not have time to even do exercise, but how do you do bonding with a family? Let's say you'll be thinking, I got no time for this, no time for that. But I say you can do combination, combination of things. For example, you can play just simple thing instead of everybody just on the computer. You can make it a fun thing for your family. Just go swimming together, or just play badminton together. That can be a bonding time for the family, so you get to understand each other, the smile, the laugh, and also you can exercise at the same time. Because nowadays, we have to package, 3 in 1 or 4 in 1 or whatever in one, yeah. But you get all the benefit. So all this can help the emotion and help the, how to say, the wholesome aspect of your mind. And we know all, when you're happy, then you release all the happy hormone, your serotonin, all will spark up. The smile not only on your face but in your brain, and I think this will be very helpful. So I think in our time, of course, it's very challenging. We juggle between a lot of things, and I think also we waste time a lot with handphones. Yeah, they say your life is in your hand, but then I tell them now it's very dangerous. We say your life is in your hand, but in your hand is the handphone. Yeah, and this is very challenges. I mean, a lot of time wasted for just checking thing, and then the things that they need to do, then they couldn't finish, and then stress come, and then it continue and continue. So all this, I think, the factor that trigger, that cause the what they call the this emotion can be what they call eradicate. Yeah, and it's possible. Yeah, but most of us, I think, we nowadays like to find cure. We like to find cure. If this doesn't work, we find another cure, another cure. But actually, the cause is actually the cause that trigger it. You just remove that cause, and then you already feel good. So it is probably back to really reflect, what caused it. Then we remove the cause. Then it won't trigger. But if you still seek for cure, then they will be dangerous. Because, like, for example, an example I like to share. One day in the past, I was working too. Yeah, my boss, he got uric acid, for example. Yeah, of course, cause pain. Sometimes you can see his face and all those things. But when we were on a business trip in China, and he loves to eat. Yeah. And when he see a Beijing duck, and he was, tempted to eat. I said, if you eat, you're going to suffer the pain. He said, no worry, I have the pill. Yeah, I have the pill. So that when he eat, then he will take the pill to counter the uric acid. But sometimes it doesn't really work, After he enjoyed that probably 5 minutes of taste of the Beijing duck, then after that evening itself, you can see he's limping. Yeah. So we want a cure to how to say, to sustain our desire, our craving, our clinging. So this is actually quite dangerous. for a long time. Can you imagine? You take something in. What about our liver? They're going to be a lot of work for them. And if they cannot work well to, detox it, it will stay in your body. And the body will accumulate a lot of toxic, yeah, a lot of problem. Then definitely one day you get even more sick. Yeah. So I would suggest that we look at the prevention, yeah, the cause, remove the cause, try to remove the cause. I think we will be happier and healthier every day.
Thank you so much, Aya. Thank you so much for that reminder that prevention is better than cure. And we have to proactively work on these things and not leave it to chance. It's something that we need to we need to adapt into our lifestyle and make it a part of our lifestyle. So, Kat, you wanted to follow up on what Aya said?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is you mentioned the importance of physical health and time, which is very similar to what therapists have advised as well, where you make sure that you have balanced time for self-care, leisure activities, and productive. These three areas of your life. If you don't have a balanced, time to take care of yourself, you said be kind to yourself, but you're working constantly, or you're just going out there for leisure only, then you will have that imbalance. And the other thing that really brings to mind is hearing you say about the cause and the prevention of it. And that is where we come in and say, you know what, how you're feeling is possibly completely proportionate to the level of distress that you've experienced. But let's look at what the factors are that's keeping the problem going. Yeah, because sometimes it's a little hard to find the answer of what the cause is when your mind is a bit messy. But if we try to reduce the factors that's maintaining the problem, then it's a lot easier for us to discover and find out what the cause is sometimes. And so that's why using those 5 areas is a really good way to help us recognize what is maintaining the problem for me first. We can learn 10,000 techniques. There's so many out there. Why is it not sustainable? And often the reason is because those techniques don't hit those core factors that are maintaining the problem. And so that's why when you start to write down, as you mentioned, Smitha, the triggers, what are the thoughts, what are the feelings, the actions that I'm doing, particularly the behaviors, what is it that I'm doing that's giving me a short-term relief, like the pill that you mentioned, Aya. It's giving that person a short-term relief and ability to engage in that task or job. But in the long run, there's some unintended consequences. And often we have a tendency to fall into avoidance because it works in the short run. When you're scared of dogs, if you avoid the dog, you don't need to wait for 2 hours for your anxiety to come down. You feel you can breathe when you just don't look at the dog and you avoid it. But then if we avoid something for 10 years down the line, what's going to happen to our fear for dogs? Yeah, so that sort of relates to different areas of our lives as well. And I know Joy had mentioned, managing fear and anger and things like that. And I hope some of these things that we've shared today will help answer some of those questions in training our brain to manage those uncomfortable or distressing emotions by simply, first of all, bring ourselves back to the attention on, are we judging these emotions, or can we use these emotions as information? Our body telling us something. Can we use these forms to help ourselves break it down so that we can plan how we might want to respond in the future differently? And obviously, as I had mentioned, in terms of the healthy lifestyle, just bring it down to basics, practice your sleep, your eating habits. Sometimes you don't need something rocket science to help ourselves. I think those things that she's mentioned, if you're able to follow them, I'm pretty confident that you'll start to see some positive changes as well.
So on that question, thank you, Kat. On that question from Joy, how to gradually reduce our negative emotions. Aya, what do you think is the role of developing the 4 Brahma Viharas? Right, we talk about developing antidotes to these negative emotions, right? So say developing. So for those who don't know, the 4 Brahma Viharas are Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekha. So, if you want to talk about that, Aya, how do developing those help counter these negative emotions?
Yeah. There are 4, yeah. When they say metta means love, kindness, or friendliness, yeah. And karuna, compassion. Compassion means when you see someone is suffering, and there's this thought of helping them to reduce their suffering. Whereas mudita means uh, altruistic joy, that when others have success, then we rejoice. Yeah. And the fourth one, upeka. Upeka means equanimity, and equanimity means we have a comprehension, yeah, of uh, the calmness, yeah, of facing whatever that comes, with that understanding that there are factors that are beyond our control. Yeah, for example, the play of karma. Yeah, so in developing these four Brahma Vihara, we say because these qualities are like living in heaven. Yeah, when you practice it, so we need metta, that goodwill, friendliness, love, and kindness. In, for example, just now the question talking about, gradually to reduce our anger and fear. So I think metta is a very important aspect to cultivate first, and first to cultivate metta towards ourselves. So indeed, actually, it's not very difficult. If you look at a simple way, uh, we think of meditation, yeah, but in our daily practice, it can be actually very, very easily cultivated. Nowadays, when you look out, how many people smile? Do you see? How many people smile actually? And we know smile actually trigger good hormone, but we forgot to smile. I still remember there is a case, yeah. The person have anxiety for many years, and the first time that this person described about his anxiety, he already have that trigger, yeah, and palpitation and panic, and he even actually pull out, his medicine, yeah, and he was thinking of popping in already. Then I told him, okay, please just hold. I said, just hold. Okay. I said, now you just listen to my instruction and then you just follow. So I direct him to have what they call the in breath and out breath breathing, but a deep breathing. Yeah. And after breathing for about 20 times, then I said, how do you feel now? Then he said, better. Then I point to him. I said, do you see that or not? That even without that, you can be able to calm down. But as I direct him to breathe in and breathe out, the first 10 times, just breathe in and breathe out, relax. But second 10 times, I start to direct him, breathe in and smile. I remember when I observed his face, because long time he has not smiled at all. Even for his facial muscles to smile, it takes so much effort for him to do that. But he did it. And because of that, then I see his potential to help himself. And I just share with him, I say, look, when you start to smile, don't you feel relaxed, more relaxed? He said, yes. Yeah. So I say, okay, for this week, when they go back, you just do that. Yeah. Breathe in and just smile. Breathe out, relax. Breathe in, just smile. Breathe out, relax. And that helps to calm down his emotion of the anxiety. And of course, subsequently after that, I give him some other ways that he can help himself to start. For example, do something. He loved swimming before, but he didn't do it for years. So I say, go back to swim. Yeah? And after that, he feels better. Then after that, slowly, okay, things that he likes to do. And I give a simile about baking cakes. How gradual, we need to know how it goes. And when we wish for let's say the cake to be perfect, then we need to know the ingredient, the menu, and then the right timing to do it, test it again and again until you get it right. And then apparently he has done baking before and he did it. And he was very happy. Every week he come, he feels very happy. And the last part is that I asked him, how long have you not been contacting with your friends and all those people? He said, for a long time. So I said, when I mentioned this to you, I said, is there anybody that crossed your mind, your good friends or whatever? And he said, yes, somebody. I said, why don't you start calling them and chatting with them, say hi, hello, And he did it. And after that, he feels so happy. So it's just start with a smile. Yeah, start with a smile. And this smile, I think we also know that research show, yeah. If I remember, they said when you smile, then only 17 muscles, yeah, move, and it keep you young, look young. But when you grown, yeah, you actually activate 70 something muscles, and that makes you looks old. Yeah. So therefore, I think, what choice do you think we wish? I think everybody wants to look young. So the first thing is to smile every day when you wake up. Yeah, when you wake up. Yeah, most of us, we wake up, sometimes we still do not want to actually come up from our bed. But the key thing is, after you wake up, the first thing is to smile to yourself. Yeah. And I told them, if you are unable, when you brush your teeth, you look to the mirror, then you make a smile and brush your teeth. So you look at yourself. So as you smile, actually the mechanism of our body very interesting. As you smile, the heart start to open. The more you smile, the more your heart start to open. So this is a very simple thing. But of course, in our cultivation of metta meditation, it is good, because metta meditation counters aversion or ill will in the mind. Yeah. So it starts with ourselves. So when we start to metta ourselves, so sometimes we will feel some unpleasantness start to appear. Yeah. And sometimes even when we metta to ourselves, then of course our mind start to send the signal, yeah, for the whole body to be well and happy. Any segment that is not well and happy, it will trigger in your mind. Yeah. And you can actually look at it again, and at the same time uh, learn to well wish them, have goodwill towards them. If it's a person, then you can wish them to be well and happy too. So before that, you have to wish yourself, may I be well and happy, and may you be well and happy. Because a lot of time you tell them, you wish the other be, may you be well and happy, then in their mind they will have question, why should I? Because that person is wrong. Yeah, but so be kind to yourself, wish yourself well and happy, and then you wish the other person to be well and happy. So you find at least, not too bad, you are happy and that person is happy. But sometimes forgiveness also is good to be done, because if we still hold on to the grudges, the first thing it hurts is yourself. Yeah, and when you keep it and you suppress it, that actually always playing behind your mind, and it triggers the way you think, the way you say, or way you do things. Yeah, and as long as you didn't take it out, it can be very disturbing. Yeah, I just like to share one incident where I learned, yeah, how to do metta meditation when I was in university, and I still remember the incident very well. So we start with, may I be well and happy, yeah, and you just keep doing it until you are very calm. And next one, you can actually wish that your family members to be well and happy. And third, they told us to wish neutral person, your neighbors or strangers on the streets, yeah, to be well and happy. I find that I have no problem. And the fourth one, in the past, they say this also, metta to your enemy. So when come to, to have loving kindness for the enemy, I remember that, I couldn't find anybody that I feel that I have enemy. And for some time, that nothing comes out. But then suddenly my uncle's face come up. Yeah. And my uncle's face come up. Well, then the story comes up. Yeah. What comes up? Then I see the scene. Yeah. And that the dinner I was eating, because we have a extended family. So my uncle and the wife was eating, and myself. And actually on that day, I was not feeling well. So I was sneezing. But what happened? My uncle pulled my ear. So I was only 7, that time. And that incident just popped up. I thought I don't have anybody that I am angry with or disappointed with. But that incident came up. After that, subsequently, another thing come out. The skin start to come. And what I see, then my uncle used to ask, myself, my sister, to sweep floor, to do things, but never call his own children. So in my mind, not fair. Okay, so that was only 7 years old, right? At the time I was doing the meditation, I was already 19. So how long do I keep that? I thought I don't have anybody that I'm angry with, but there is. But in that occasion, I still remember, suddenly my tears just rolled down. And in that moment, my mom said, why should I, be angry with him? It was the past. Yeah. And so at that moment, it's so much relief, that it was actually the past, but why should I keep the anger with him? And I should forgive him and then move on. So that incident actually tell me, how much, if we look into our mind, how much have we kept that? How much thing have we suppressed? Yeah, unconsciously. I thought I don't have anyone, but that tells me 12 years ago, I have this incident. Yeah? So when we
Absolutely.
do practice, uh, it can trigger all these things to come out again. So don't worry, face it, and then learn to forgive. Yeah, and then we can move on. We can tell the story, but now you don't feel sad or feel heartbroken or feel bad or feel disappointed. So
Thank
I
you.
think metta meditation helps us, and it counter ill will and aversion or grudges. Yeah, so we may start with uh, someone that is like you respect. Then you can start with some family members. But the moment let's say you met somebody, and then you feel unpleasant, you feel some pain. Don't worry,
Yeah.
you can keep to the last. So you met those whom you can relate to, and you can actually spread your loving kindness quite easily, so that it establishes some strength, yeah, and stamina. Then only you go to those that you have that kind of uh, uh, I would say grudges or misunderstanding, or just maybe just misperception. Yeah,
Yeah.
so these are qualities I think which is important that we need to cultivate, and also compassion. Compassion is the quality. Yeah. Before that, I just like to highlight. Yeah. Sometimes metta is confused with attachment. Yeah, attachment. So you think you have lots of loving kindness, let's say to your son, but you actually are overcare. You worry a lot. You overcare. They don't need that care, but you want to control. You want to, let's say, what they call possess. Yeah, and that's where you find uh, uh, unhappiness. Yeah, not because that person don't like you or don't care for you, but because we become overcare. So when overcare, then we feel very uneasy, and the person also feel uneasy. So sometimes we need to give space for each other and the trust, and then we feel more comfortable, yeah, in that relationship. Yeah, so it can be confused by attachment. And the next one, compassion. Compassion is the thoughts of when somebody is suffering. We have this thought that we wish to reduce the suffering. And I think it is a good, wholesome thought. But we should not confuse with pity. Pity
Yeah.
means we can be emotionally involved. So we say, suppose that, let's say a person is drowning. Yeah, if we have compassion, of course we try to help. Yeah, we know that a life is in danger, but if emotionally we are involved, we think we want to save that person. But although we, let's say, have some swimming ability, but we don't have a lifeguard swimming capability. uh, if you try to jump in and try to save that person, so before that person actually drown, you yourself will actually will be drowned. Because why? You may not have the technique, efficiency to save that person, because that person is, no matter whoever comes, because they are, looking for survival, they will just grab and push. Yeah. So this is where compassion actually entails some wisdom. But if emotion, we may actually endanger ourselves. Then
Yeah.
not only one person may be dying, two-person will be involved. So in having compassion is that first, of course, we have the metta in our heart, yeah, and then next one, the wisdom that comes in to help others to help themselves too. So in one way, if we do not or unable to do the saving, so what we can do is call for help. Yeah, call for help, or maybe we try to find something that we can give to the person that we can pull them up, or different ways of uh, techniques or ways to help them, but we also do not endanger ourselves. So I think this also is important. So in sometimes, like let's say helping others when emotionally down, yeah, and we are not able to help them, but we try, we say out of compassion, then sometimes the emotion can be a package to yourself, yeah, and you cannot sleep thinking about somebody's problem, yeah, and so this is
Actually,
yeah,
yeah, oh yeah, sorry to interrupt, because
yeah,
what you're saying there actually really rings a bell for me, especially when you said, you know, being kind to yourself. I find that often is a huge challenge. And in terms of what you're mentioning, like being the meta smiling and seeing the positive side of things, this kind of links to one of our audience, Lily, who mentioned and asked, actually, is trying to be happy, will that make you more miserable, or accepting negativity will make you more positive? And what you've been sharing there, Aya, I hopefully can in some way answer that question for Lily. I'm not sure what you think in terms of how sometimes people might think, oh, if you try to be happy all the time or you're trying too hard, actually it has an adverse effect. But that doesn't sound like that's what you're suggesting, Aya. It sounds like it's more sort of like a relaxed kind of physical kind of, even just smiling, not expecting more to help kind of bring that meta out. Is that sort of what you mean? Sort of you not having to try too hard to be positive, or?
I think smiling is a very natural response, yeah, for our heart to be open. So when we get emotional, normally the heart is closed. So by using the mind, sometimes it doesn't actually work, yeah, because you try to be happy. That is a kind of like you're forcing yourself, and that is hard, yeah. But by actually taking a simple breath, like sometimes when you go holiday, you feel free, you just smile, yeah, and at times we have to remind ourselves, yeah, that helps to trigger our well-being, huh? And we need to know how to recognize it. So when they don't recognize it and we think that this is like forcing ourselves, yeah, and and sometimes people say, if you don't try it and bring back what is good, what is wholesome for the mind and for the body, then of course we'll be in that state that bring our mind down and feel uneasy, unhappy. So how do we switch that? So physically, the simplest thing is we say, okay, breathe in and breathe out and bring the smile back. So that immediately, yeah, like for example, we when we teach people how to meditate, yeah, even for beginners, yeah, we teach them some techniques of breathing. And the last part I used to tell them, after you breathe in, you just breathe in with a smile and just breathe out, relax. When I ask them to compare, yeah, just breathing in and breathe out, and breathing in with a smile and breathing out, relax. What is the difference? And most of the time, all of them will give you very positive word. They say calm, peaceful, joyful, and peace. Most of the time, you hear all the nice, positive word that comes out from that simple activity. So, and then I said, maybe in the past you have forgotten about this, but now you are doing it and you're experiencing it, and everybody is saying, that positive word. So, isn't it very helpful? And so if it's helpful, why don't we try, and to do it every day so that it helps us. Yeah.
So,
So
what was, sorry, Kat, what was your take on this question? Trying to be happy. I mean, it looks like the question is about, if you're trying to be happy, you'll be more miserable, which I think Aya has clearly told that, if you this isn't a true statement, right? If you're trying to be happy, it's not going to make you unhappy. If you're trying to be happy, it should not be making you unhappy. So what are your thoughts on that, Kat?
Yeah, I would say I would agree and disagree at the same time, because I think it's very different for everyone on that definition of trying to be happy. So I think when someone is trying to be happy, sometimes if they add the element of judging themselves or having an expectation that's unrealistic, then it's actually isn't the trying to be happy that's causing the problem, is the belief behind it. It's your intention, it's your misinterpretation or other actions that follow from trying that's actually making you feel worse. So it isn't as clear cut, but I think it's a really good question out there, because often people think, oh, I just don't want to, I'm just so exhausted, I can't smile. And that's okay too. As Lily's got a good point. Sometimes if you accept the negatives, I think by definition of them, accepting doesn't mean avoiding them or to not acknowledge them, but maybe acceptance mean embracing it as it is so that you can work with it in a helpful manner. I would say yes, I would agree to that. So that's a good question I think people can think about. And I know there's another question by Stanley, who is quite actually giving us quite good information in terms of recognizing sometimes you can be spiritual practitioners. Let's have a little read. I know it's got a really, I can't actually see the whole question. Thank you for showing us, Brother Chong. So yes, so there's 3 different domains: spiritual, mental, and physical. And someone who's spiritually awakened may not be mentally stable or physically healthy. And at the end, I think the question is around, let's have
Yeah,
a look.
let me read through the question there. Uh, So yes, that's why some Buddhist teachers, especially in the West, are searching for help from psychotherapies to enhance or supplement their dharma practices. What are Aya's and Kat's view on this trend?
I remember Aya said something, we had a bit of a chat before today, and she mentioned something really important, where actually practitioners or spiritual leaders, when they go into their practice, actually they're bringing in their experiences, their past traumas, their past fixed beliefs, a whole combination. And it depends on their intention. And I would agree to that in terms of why, we're all humans at the end of the day. We often put higher expectations on spiritual practitioners, nuns and monks, to be able to cope with a lot of things. But they're just, to me, subjectively, I feel like they're human beings just like the same as us, but they put in a lot more responsibilities on their shoulders, because they made a vow not just to take care of themselves and their family and friends. They made a vow to help any beings with no discrimination, the world. Can you imagine that? And they're just the same as you and I, who've gone through probably similar childhood upbringing, the culture that they're living in, but they've got a much wider mind and heart to embrace. And I would say it's normal for them to go into different therapies or counseling or whatever means there is to help them recognize, are there any past things that's holding me back? Because that's what therapy and counseling is about, really. It's just protected time for you to explore different resources and avenues to help us let go of some things that aren't very helpful and focus on things that are more meaningful to us. That's my personal view, but I'm not sure what I might say to that.
Yes, Kat. So we know that whether we are in the robe or in the lay life, yeah, we are all human. And even in the robe, they are called a trainee, yeah? A trainee, and also they have different level. And it also depends on the purpose of why they are into that spiritual cultivation, yeah. And if they in our modern time, yeah, we can see that even the word spiritual connote many kinds of uh, angle of cultivation that people go for, and some may also involve in occult kind of practice, and there are different practices. Yeah, if they are following the teaching, yeah, in terms of what the Buddha mentioned about the Noble Eightfold Path, yeah, where it starts with the right view, yeah, and how the right view will condition the right thoughts, and how right thoughts will condition with the right speech. For example, when we talk about the right view, the Buddha talks about the right understanding about the Four Noble Truths. Yeah, what is suffering, the cause of suffering, how to end suffering, and the way to end suffering. That's the first thing. Yeah, if they have the right view, and how this condition the right thought. If we have this in mind, then it will condition our thoughts to be thought that actually gradually decrease our sensual pleasure, our sensual desire or attachment, and also the thought of loving kindness and the thought of non-cruelty. And the next, it will condition right speech. Yeah, when we have this kind of thought, our speech also become more wholesome, like speech which is truthful, beneficial, pleasant, and also speech that bring harmony. And this again, the Buddha said, will condition right action, bodily action. So how does it condition our bodily action? So it will condition right bodily action means actions that save life, yeah, actions that protect life, actions that bring protection to property, to things that others have, and also actions that brings contentment and faith, yeah, faithfulness. So again, this will condition our livelihood, yeah, the way we work, on what way we want to earn our money, and all those things, yeah. And
Yeah.
from here, it condition your right effort, and right effort will condition your right mindfulness, and right mindfulness will condition your right, we call it samadhi, which your joy, your gladness, and blissfulness in mind, and it brings to your wisdom. So in this way, I think we can see the way of practice is important. And so when whether a monk is when they face problem with this, yeah, some may enter the monkhood with also avoidance or escapism, thinking that that will help them to solve problem. But a good teacher will know how to identify their student. Yeah, if a student come in when they meditate, they can identify whether that probably that student may have some mental challenges. Then it's good that they also give them the proper way of practice. Yeah, and how they can overcome. But of course, those who probably need some help from the psychotherapist, by all means, they should actually seek help when they need help. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that the purpose of the person who wants to go on spiritual path, of course, spiritual path will bring awakening, which is a good way, like what the Buddha have done, and many of his disciples, and even many practitioners now. But there are also those who didn't make it well, and of course, they need help, and we should help them with the proper way to come out to their mental health again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aya. We have a lot of questions and comments coming in for the audience, but I will just take one last question and a 30-second response from both of you because we really overshot our time limit here. I did not expect it to run into 2 hour session. But one last question from Sami. How can we be neutral with our emotions? How to manage emotional damage that one may have? Kat, a quick 30-second response from you, and then we take a 30-second response from Aya as well.
So I would say, first of all, I think personally it's hard to be neutral with emotions. It's more about being an observer of emotions. So, and I know I had mentioned quite a lot of tips to help us do that in terms of just working with our physical body, to smiling, to breathing techniques. All of those things will help us start to be a bit more, I'm not sure if you might agree, more neutral in some ways to our emotions, or less impacted or affected by them. In terms of managing emotions that are more damaging, brilliant. It means that you're starting to have that courage to face something that needs to be healed, that's important in your life. I would say, by all means, speak to a professional, not because you think, oh, you need people are scared to seek help because you think it means there's a long-term commitment or something, but you can just seek help, just to ask questions, to clarify, actually, hold on, is this for me? Is this going to help me? Give me some information. Yeah. I can post in some links later on in the chat, but here in England, we use what we call questionnaires like the PHQ-9 or the GAD-7, just to measure, not to diagnose anything, but just to see what the clinical symptoms are for anxiety, low mood, or even PTSD and things like that. Please explore the DSM-5 as well. You can search on it online. I'm not saying that they have all the answers, but it'll give you a fair idea to know how much impact your emotions are having. And actually, it's important to address it, just like you have a physical illness. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. Aya, you have anything else to, your wrapping up comments?
Yeah, I would say that keep a healthy lifestyle and then smile always. And when you face any kind of emotion, please come back to your breath and smile. And then, of course, acknowledge, whatever that comes up, yes, it is there, but it is the past. Yeah. So live with the present, and then you can move on more steadily and happily.
Thank you so much, Aya. Thank you so much, Kat. A very wonderful discussion. And just summarizing, I think it took us through the entire gamut of how to identify emotions, how they arise from the two perspectives that we saw, and what are some of the proactive steps we can take in managing, in trying to make it a way of life, a habit for ourselves, something that we could do, every single day of our lives to keep a check on our emotions, what are our triggers, what are our thinking styles, as Kat put out there, and use these tools to our advantage. And from the Dharma perspective, try and not just manage emotions when they arise, and not just do your meditations. Okay, meditations are all going to be like long drawn, and you need to practice them to be able to really help and benefit from it, right? But also how doing the the other meditations like loving kindness and practicing them in your daily life are equally important antidotes to to the negative emotions, right? So it's important not just to build techniques to manage your emotions when they arise, but it's also to do conscious antidotes and say wholesome deeds to be able to counter the arise of these negative emotions. So I think this was extremely a great session. I did not expect it to run into 2 hours, but thank you so much to Aya and Kat for a really good session. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And with that, we'll come to the end of this section. Samiksha.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you. It was like, I would say it was a very thoughtful, reflective, and very informative discussion we had tonight. I think our audience had loved the session. They had so many questions, and it was like very long that we did not expect it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bhikkhuni Sumangala. Thank you very much for your precious time. Thank you, Kat. Thank you very much. And thank you, Smita ji, for moderating this session very smoothly. Thank you very much. And I would also like to thank our audience. They were like so thoughtful tonight. So I would like to thanks to them for tuning into Sattva. So now I would like to announce this one event, and then we will conclude this session with short dedication prayer. So we have an event on 25th of September. The topic is how Buddhist teachings are transmitted. This session will be moderated by Ram Narula, and the contributors will be Dr. Matya Salvini and Bem Mitrio. I hope our audience will join it. And now I would like to request Bhikkhuni Sumangala to please recite a short dedication prayer.
Let us now compose our mind and always recall to mind all the good deeds that we have done and our session to help ourselves and to help others so that we can find peace in mind and also our happiness and freedom in our cultivation towards liberation. Varusappa mangalang rakantu sappa devata Sabba Buddhanubhavena, Sabba Dhammanubhavena, Sabba Sanghanubhavena, Sada Suti Bhavantu Te. By the blessings of the Triple Gem, and with all the good merits and also protections from the heavenly beings, may all the noble aspiration be fulfilled soon. May our family always be blessed with good health, happiness, and peace, and continue to grow in the Dhamma until it attain the high bliss of Nibbana. Sad, sad,
Sadhu,
sad.
sadhu.
Thank you, Aya Sumangala Vikuni. Thank you very much. Kat, would you like to say?
Just wanted to share a dedication prayer. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits and all your merits. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Smitaji?
I dedicate the merit thus gathered towards the realization of the deeds and the prayers of all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas of the three times and to the upholding of the Dharma of teaching and realization. May I, in all lives, through the force of this merit, never separate from the four wheels of the Mahayana vehicle and accomplish all the stages of the path, renunciation, bodhicitta, perfect view, and the two stages. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha until I reach full enlightenment.
Thank you. The four great vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. May all beings be well, happy, and safe. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
to all.
you. Thank you
Everybody,
so much, Samiksha. Thank you, Brother Chong, Sharapla, Aya, Sumangala, and Kat. Thank you all for today's session. Thank you for your time.
thank you everyone.
Thank you very much.